My name is Amanda. I'm 22 years old and I work at a Walmart just outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Since I'm trying to save up money for classes, I usually take the graveyard shift because it pays $1 more an hour. My shift on this specific night was the standard 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. Usually it's just me and maybe 2 other stalkers, plus a manager who stays in the office and a cashier at the very front. Because our store is right off a major highway, we get the occasional weirdo coming in off the road, but usually it's dead quiet by midnight. It's actually the best time to get work done because you don't have to dodge customers with giant pallets. I started my night in the cereal aisle, facing all the boxes and making sure everything looked neat. I had my earbuds in, listening to a podcast, which was pretty standard for us night crew guys. A customer came down the aisle around 11:45 p.m. It wasn't odd, people get late night munchies. He tapped me on the shoulder because I didn't hear him walk up. I pulled an earbud out and he asked where the specific brand of organic coffee was. I told him it was on aisle 9. He thanked me, but he kind of lingered for a second, looking at my name tag before walking away. I didn't think much of it. He walked off and I went back to zoning the cereal boxes. About 2 hours went by. The store was basically empty. The music had switched to the low-volume night loop. It was around 2 a.m. I had moved over to the chemical aisle, stocking heavy jugs of laundry detergent. It's heavy work, so I was sweating a bit and taking a breather. I happened to look through the gap between the shelves, when the merchandise is low and you can see into the next aisle over. I saw a pair of boots standing perfectly still. I watched for a second, thinking maybe they were reading a label, but they didn't move. I walked to the end of my aisle and peered around the corner. It was the coffee guy. He was standing in the paper towel aisle, just facing the shelf, but not looking at the products. He was looking through the gap, right at where I had just been standing. I felt a cold chill go down my back. I looked at his hands. He didn't have a basket. He didn't have a cart. He wasn't holding the coffee I told him 2 hours ago. There was no reason to be in a Walmart for 2 hours and buy absolutely nothing. I decided I needed to get away from the open floor. I grabbed my box cutter and some cardboard and headed toward the back storage room. It's a massive warehouse space where we keep the overstock. You have to go through heavy swinging double doors to get there. It says authorized personnel only in big red letters. I went to the baler, the machine that crushes cardboard, and started loading it. The noise of the machine is loud, screeching metal, so I felt a little safer making noise. I was back there for maybe 20 minutes, just trying to burn time until my lunch break so I could go sit in my car. Suddenly, the heavy swinging doors to the back room flew open. I turned around expecting to see my manager or the other stalker, Dave. It was the coffee guy. He walked right past the authorized personnel only sign like it wasn't even there. I froze. We were way in the back, totally out of sight of the cameras that cover the sales floor. He spotted me by the baler and started walking straight toward me with this weird, calm look on his face. "Hey," I said, my voice cracking a little. "You can't be back here, man. This is for employees only." He didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. He just kept walking with his hands in his pockets. I panicked. I didn't want to get cornered against the machine. I dropped the cardboard I was holding and sprinted to the side, putting a row of pallets between us. "Sir, you need to leave," I yelled louder this time. He stopped at the end of the pallet row and just smiled. "I'm looking for the restroom," he said. His tone was totally flat. "The restrooms are at the front of the store," I yelled back. "You passed them 2 hours ago." As soon as I said that, his smile dropped. He realized I knew he'd been there the whole time. He took a fast step toward me, pulling his hand out of his pocket. I didn't wait to see what he was holding. I bolted for the receiving dock door, which leads outside, but then I remembered the alarm would trip, so I cut hard and ran back through the swinging doors onto the sales floor.
I ran straight to the front register where the cashier, Brenda, was standing. I told her to call the manager immediately. While she was paging him, the guy walked out of the backroom doors. He walked casually down the main aisle, right past us, and out the automatic front doors. He didn't look back once. My manager came running up, and I told him everything. He thought I was exaggerating until we went into the office to review the tapes. The footage showed the guy hadn't been shopping at all. For 2 hours, he had been mirroring my movements. When I moved to aisle 4, he was on aisle 5. When I moved to aisle 10, he was on aisle 11. He was watching me through the cracks in the shelves the entire night. But the scariest part was the footage from the back room. When I was loading the baler, the camera showed him standing just inside the swinging doors for 5 full minutes before he made his presence known. He was just watching me work, holding something in his hand that looked a lot like a zip tie. I transferred to the day shift the next week. I never saw the coffee guy again.
Taking the overnight shift at a Walmart supercenter was basically a rite of passage for broke college students in my town. I was 22, drowning in tuition fees, and needed a job that didn't interfere with my classes during the day. My job was straightforward. I was overnight inventory. I didn't have to ring people up or deal with complaints. I just unloaded the truck, broke down pallets, and stocked the shelves while the store was closed. My shift usually ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I'll never forget the night of November 12th, 2016. It was a Tuesday, so the crew was skeleton thin. It was just me and 2 other guys, Marcus and Dave, handling the entire floor. We usually split up to cover more ground, so we were pretty isolated from each other. I was working in the toys section, specifically the aisle with the board games and puzzles. It was around 1 a.m., deep into the quiet hours where the only sound is the buzzing of the lights and the hum of the freezers from the grocery side. I was breaking down a box of Monopoly games when I saw movement in my peripheral vision. It looked like someone walking past the end of the aisle, heading toward the bike rack. I figured it was Marcus coming to ask for a box cutter or something, so I didn't pay much attention. But then I realized the person was wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. We all wore navy blue polos with the company logo. I walked to the end of the aisle and looked left. The main alleyway was completely empty. "Marcus? Dave?" I called out. Silence. Just the AC kicking on. It was weird, but I figured maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me from the fluorescent lighting. I went back to stalking. About 20 minutes later, I heard a distinct thud from 2 aisles over, the action figure aisle. It sounded like something heavy hitting the linoleum. I walked over to investigate. Lying in the middle of the floor was a large, battery-operated ride-on Jeep. These things are heavy, and they sit on the bottom shelf. For it to fall, it would have to be pulled. I scanned the area. Nothing. I dragged the Jeep back into place, feeling the hair on the back of my neck stand up. As I stood up, I heard a sound that froze me. It was a whistle, a low, melodic whistling tune coming from the aisle I had just left. I ran back to the board game aisle. Standing at the far end near the back wall was the guy in the gray hoodie. He was facing away from me, staring up at the top stock. He was just standing there, perfectly still. "Hey, the store is closed," I shouted, trying to sound authoritative. He didn't turn around. He just took a sharp left and sprinted toward the garden center. I had a choice, chase him or find my coworkers. I chose to find Marcus. I started speed walking toward the electronics department where I knew Marcus was resetting a display. But on the way, the stress hit my stomach and I realized I needed to use the bathroom immediately. The fear had literally worked its way through my system. I ducked into the family restroom near the back layaway desk because it was a single room and locked from the inside. I figured I was safe there. I locked the door, checked it twice, and sat down. I was in there for maybe 2 minutes when the handle jiggled. "Occupied!"
I yelled out, assuming it was Dave or Marcus. The giggling stopped. Then I heard a heavy impact against the door, like someone had thrown their shoulder into it. Then silence. I stood up and backed away from the door. Marcus, quit playing around, man. Then I saw it. The door to the family restroom had a gap at the bottom, maybe 2 inches high. I saw fingertips slide under the door. They gripped the bottom edge of the wood and pulled, straining against the lock. The fingers were dirty, the nails cracked and black. Then the person laid flat on the floor outside. I saw a face press against the gap at the bottom of the door. One wide, unblinking eye stared up at me from the floor level. He started giggling. It was a high-pitched, breathless giggle that echoed off the tile. I scrambled for my phone and dialed Dave's number. I was shouting into the phone, "Dave, bring a weapon. Get to the back layaway bathroom right now. There's a guy trying to break in." The eye stayed there, watching me panic. The giggling got louder. "I'm on my way," Dave yelled through the phone. The second Dave shouted, the face pulled back from the gap. I heard scrambling footsteps running away from the door, heading back toward the warehouse. When Dave and Marcus arrived, they were holding hammers they grabbed from hardware. I unlocked the door, shaking like a leaf. The hallway was empty. We did a full sweep of the store. We checked every aisle, the warehouse, even the roof access. The guy was gone. The fire exits were all still alarmed and sealed. Nobody had opened them. The next afternoon, I went into the manager's office to talk to my boss, Sarah. I told her everything and demanded we look at the security footage. She looked pale. She turned the monitor toward me. "Look at this," she said. She played the footage from the cameras covering the layaway desk and the hallway to the restroom. From 1:15 a.m. to 1:30 a.m., the exact time I was in the bathroom, the screen was just black static. Not just that camera, but every camera along the path the guy would have taken to get there. The cameras in electronics and toys were working fine, showing me walking around and talking to thin air, looking terrified, but the intruder was never once caught in frame. It was like he was walking in a blind spot that moved with him. I finished out my 2 weeks, but I never worked a night shift again. To this day, I don't know who or what was giggling at me from under that door.
My name is Jessica. I was 23 years old at the time, working 2 jobs to support my daughter while her father was out of the picture. I took the overnight stalker position at a supercenter Walmart in rural Ohio because it paid a shift differential and it allowed me to be home during the day when my mom watched the baby. My shift was usually 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. If you've never been in a supercenter at 3 a.m., it's a liminal space. The lights are humming, the floors are shiny, and it's eerily quiet. We ran a skeleton crew most nights, maybe 5 stalkers on the floor, 1 maintenance guy, and a manager who sat in the cash office for half the shift. It was a Tuesday night, typically the slowest night of the week. I was assigned to the health and beauty department, stocking heavy bottles of shampoo and tiny cosmetics. It's a tedious area because there are so many small items. Around 1 a.m., I noticed a guy walking down the main alley actionway. He stood out because he was wearing a heavy winter coat even though it was mid-July and humid outside. He had a red drawstring bag slung over one shoulder that looked heavy. He didn't grab a cart, he just walked slowly, looking left and right, but not really looking at the merchandise. He was looking at the aisles. I kept my head down, focusing on facing the conditioner bottles. I felt that prickle on the back of my neck, the instinctual feeling that eyes are on you. I turned around and he was standing at the very end of my aisle, just standing there, staring at me. When I made eye contact, he didn't look away. He smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile, it was wide and forced. He started walking toward me. I gripped my box cutter a little tighter. It was just the safety kind, but it was all I had. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was raspy. Do you know where the baby formula is? I pointed toward the grocery side, specifically the infant aisle, which was literally on the other side of the store. Aisle 7, all the way past the pharmacy, I said politely. Thanks, he said. You have really pretty eyes. Thank you, I said, turning back to my boxes to signal the conversation was over. He lingered for another 10 seconds, just breathing behind me, before I heard his boots squeak away. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I tried to shake it off. Weirdos are part of the night shift territory. About an hour later, I had moved to the feminine hygiene aisle to restock tampons. It's an awkward aisle for men to be in usually, so I expected privacy. I was on my knees stocking the bottom shelf when I saw a pair of boots stop right next to me. I looked up. It was him. He hadn't gone to the grocery side. He hadn't bought formula. I couldn't find it, he lied. I knew he lied because he hadn't been gone long enough to walk there and back. Maybe you could show me, I said. I can't leave my zone, I told him, standing up to create distance. I can page a manager to help you though. No, managers, he said, quickly, his demeanor snapping from fake nice to annoyed. I just want to talk to you. You're beautiful. What's your name? Sarah, I lied. Sarah, he tested the name. Can I have your number, Sarah? I just want to take you to dinner. I'm a nice guy. I just wanted him gone. The store was dead silent. My nearest coworker, Mike, was in sporting goods, which was too far away to hear me scream. I have a boyfriend, I said. He doesn't have to know. He stepped closer. He smelled like unwashed clothes and peppermint. Look, I said, my voice shaking. Write down your number. I'll text you on my break. I just wanted to de-escalate. He grinned, seemingly satisfied. He scribbled a number on a piece of receipt paper he had in his pocket and handed it to me. Call me, tonight. He walked away toward the front of the store. I waited until he was out of sight, then I crumpled the paper and threw it in my trash bag. I immediately went to find Mike in sporting goods and told him about the guy. Mike said he hadn't seen anyone, but he'd keep an eye out. I thought that was it. I thought he left. Around 4:30 a.m., lunchtime rolled around. The store locks the front doors from midnight to 6 a.m., so the only way in or out is if an employee unlocks them. I went to the employee break room in the back of the store. I heated up some pasta and sat down to look at my phone. I was the only one in there. Suddenly, the employee break room door swung open. I looked up, expecting the manager. It was the guy in the winter coat. My blood ran cold. The break room is deep in the back of the store, past the employees-only swing doors, past the claims cages. He had to have been hiding in the store for hours, sneaking around the back rooms to find me. He wasn't smiling anymore. He looked furious. You threw it away, he hissed. He'd been watching me. He must have watched me throw the paper in the trash from the end of the aisle. You can't be back here, I stood up, putting the table between us. You lied to me, Sarah, he yelled, reaching into that heavy drawstring bag. You think you're better than me? I didn't wait to see what he was pulling out of the bag. I bolted toward the other exit of the break room that leads to the personnel office. He lunged for me, grabbing the back of my vest. I felt the fabric tear, but I twisted out of it. I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Fire! Fire!" because I heard once that people react faster to fire than help. I burst into the hallway and ran straight into the night manager, Rick, who was coming to get coffee. "He's got a gun," I screamed, even though I didn't know for sure. I just knew he was reaching for something. Rick, who was a big guy, looked past me and saw the man coming out of the break room. The man saw Rick, realized he was outnumbered, and immediately turned around and sprinted back through the warehouse toward the receiving docks. Rick radioed the police immediately. We locked ourselves in the cash office and watched the cameras until the cops arrived. They did a sweep of the store with canines. They found the guy hiding behind a stack of pallets in the garden center patio, trying to figure out how to jump the fence. In his drawstring bag, they didn't find a gun. They found a roll of duct tape, a hunting knife, and a bunch of zip ties.
I quit the next morning. I work at a bank now. The pay is less, but at least I work during the day and there are security guards with actual weapons. I never found out what he planned to do with those zip ties, and I thank God every day that I didn't stick around to find out.